Since the struggle for independence, the women of Pakistan have played a central role in shaping the nation's social, cultural, economic, and political landscape. And it began under the leadership of the father of the nation, Quaid-e-Azam. Their political participation can be seen by their direct and indirect involvement in elections, while Fatima Jinnah led the women's struggle for independence. Women participation in legislature began with just 2 members in the parliament, Begum Jahanara Shah Nawaz and Begum Shaista Ikramullah. Moving forward, women did not shy away from competing in direct elections. In 2002, landmark Articles 52 and 59 in the Constitution provided a 17% reserved quota for women to increase their representation. To provide context, Pakistan has adopted a bicameral system of legislature composing of 2 houses, the Senate and the National Assembly. The National Assembly seats 342 members, 17% of which are special reserve seats for the women. The incumbent parliament has a total of 69 women who have earned a seat, while the Senate holds 104 members, out of which 20 are women in this term. Interestingly, Pakistan has always had women representation in its parliament. According to IPU World Classification of Women's Representation in the National Parliament, Pakistan is ranked ahead of more than half of the world. Despite emerging as a strength through their proactive participation in the business of the House, the lack of focus on gender-sensitive legislation in the Parliament and the urge for social justice left a sense of dissatisfaction amongst women members. That was about to change. In 2008, Pakistan elected their first ever women speaker, Dr. Fahmida Mirza. Deliberate efforts to strengthen the role of women parliamentarians were made, and equal prospect in contributing to the legislative business for women parliamentarians was ensured. An informal forum backed by unanimously passed resolution of the National Assembly was established, which would help women work beyond party lines was formed. The Women Parliamentary Caucus was a tribute to the legacy of Madar-e-Millat Mohtarma Fatima Jinnah, Begum Rana Liaquat Ali Khan, and Shaheed Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto. The Women's Parliamentary Caucus was established to achieve certain objectives. It enables women parliamentarians to work jointly and beyond party lines for advancing the women empowerment agenda in Pakistan, facilitate women parliamentarians in playing a key role in raising issues of critical importance and legislating on those issues, to attain a broad-based consensus amongst all women members of the Parliament on a minimum agreed agenda for women's social, economic, and political development, to capacitate women parliamentarians and proposing gender-responsive legislation and enable them to review and amend discriminatory laws and policies, facilitate exchange of views, information, and experiences on critical areas of concern both nationally and internationally. Liaise and build alliances with key institutions and civil society organizations in order to promote women's rights, empowerment, and gender equality, to connect with women parliamentarians across the globe by forming and strengthening alliances. The Office of Women's Parliamentary Caucus is situated at the National Assembly. The decision-making bodies, including the patron, a women legislature serving the highest legislative office, either as Speaker, the Chairperson Senate, Deputy Speaker, or the Deputy Chairperson Senate, is appointed patron of the caucus. The Secretary, traditionally from ruling party, is the Chief Executive of the caucus, along with the Working Council, which constitutes one representative each from all parliamentary parties from either of the 2 houses of the Parliament, while the Treasurer is appointed from the opposition party. And last but not least, the General Assembly consists of all members of the caucus. Only women legislators are eligible to become the members of the caucus. Since its inception in 2008, the Women's Parliamentary Caucus has slowly but articulately progressed towards assuming its role as critical mass on a variety of issues within the male-dominant houses of the Parliament. During its first term from 2008 to 2013, WPC focused on initiating gender-responsive legislation, influencing policy making, and gender-sensitizing 2 houses of the Parliament, Pro-women legislation on key issues were undertaken, including protection against harassment at workplace law and anti-acid throwing law, etc. Moving on to its second tenure from 2013 to 2018, WPC generally focused on effectiveness and impact analysis of laws passed in the first tenure. The caucus also reviews issues and challenges in the implementation of pro-women laws and proposed amendments to remove structural gaps, lacunas, and factors impeding their implementation. Work on rights of persons with disabilities, increased role and number of women police, and electoral reforms with gender perspective have been some key accomplishments. Since its inception, the Women's Parliamentary Caucus has made remarkable progress in achieving some key objectives. The caucus has managed to strengthen women's economic and political empowerment, strengthen and reform women police in Pakistan, support the rights of vulnerable groups through continued support to the rights of women, children, elderly, and persons with disabilities, support women in distress, specifically victims of acid attacks, harassment at workplace, honor killing, rape, transgenders, all forms of violence and discrimination, provide humanitarian assistance, specifically to flood victims, create awareness on women, peace and security, successfully executed a national convention to reflect on the legislative representative and oversight role of women parliamentarians. The WPC has a broad portfolio when it comes to representative and advocacy work. Some of the resolutions passed in the House through the efforts of the WPC include Pakistan Women's Parliamentarian Call for Peace, Resolution on Israeli Aggression in Gaza, condemning Israeli atrocities and indiscriminate killing of women and children, Resolution on Militants' Violence against Women and Girls in Swat, condemning the bombing of girls' schools by militants in Swat. The vision has been developed by the WPC for its third tenure, enabling Pakistani women parliamentarians to fully assume the legislative role is the way forward for the Women's Parliamentary Caucus. Strengthening alliance between the National Assembly and provincial assemblies across party lines on key topical issues is at the heart of the incumbent Women's Parliamentary Caucus. National Women's Parliamentary Caucus launched provincial visits to Sindh and Balochistan caucuses in order to develop, enhance coordination and exchange best practices on pro-women legislation. National and provincial Women's Parliamentary Caucuses have held consultations on Ba-Ikhtiyar Pakistan Aurat for 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Women's Parliamentary Caucus is a voice of general masses. It celebrates International Disability Day every year to appreciate the real-life heroes who, despite being differently abled, continue to inspire us in all walks of life. To pay tribute to women across social strata, International Women's Day 2019 and 2020 has been celebrated yearly to acknowledge women, their contributions in all the socio-political and economic dimensions. Empowering women is a mission at heart of the Women's Parliamentary Caucus. We firmly believe that investing in women means a safe, sustainable, and stable society for our future generations. To engage youth and students in policy discussion, Women's Parliamentary Caucus launched a competition, Jamhuriyat Humse, a first for the Parliament of Pakistan. The campaign provided an opportunity for youth inclusion and girl voices from all across the country to share vision and dreams for their beloved country. To ensure legal protection for women and girls, the Women's Parliamentary Caucus has initiated an extensive process of legislative reforms. Another first for the Parliament, legislative mapping on all women-related laws has been carried out. Consultations on Muslim family laws, Hindu marriage law, child marriage restraint laws have been finished. To ensure effective oversight through citizen engagement, public hearings on different laws, including Protection of Women Against Harassment at Workplace 2010 and Cybercrime Law 2018, have been held. In the era of wide role of social media, Women's Parliamentary Caucus has launched rigorous awareness campaigns on anti-harassment laws, child marriage, and public health. Resource in the form of an easy-access state-of-the-art website, simple navigation, and rich sources on laws have been consolidated to make the caucus inclusive and open for public to actively engage in the fastest way. In light of working closely with civil society, academia, and other stakeholders, the Women's Parliamentary Caucus has built alliances with multiple international strategic partners and organizations through MOUs with UN Women, Westminster Foundation for Democracy, World Health Organization, Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, and British Council for strengthening the role of women parliamentarians at all legislatures. The Women's Parliamentary Caucus is committed to upholding constitutional rights of women through representation, effective oversight, and legislative reforms.